Welcome to part 9 of Swap 2.0, in which we attempt to shoehorn in an L76 LS2 into Serafin's 55 pickup truck. I wanted to do a weekend update here as I finish up. Today's July 20th. It's been about 2 months since we've been on this project. So I want to point a couple things out here that we've done since the last video. We've got the radiator in. I'm kind of a big fan of these twin fan radiators. I like them a lot. They really work very efficiently on the LSs. This one actually came out of, or didn't come out of it. It was designed for a 67 Chevelle, and it fits in there pretty good. There's a couple of areas that need some help, but we got it in there pretty good. And I've routed the upper hose, as you can see. Normally I turn the 90s with tubing, but this time I chose to do it a little bit differently with these are silicone rubber turbo hosing, and in this particular case this is always a hard area to. This is 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. I've done it too many times, but this is the smoothest, slickest way to do it. So it transitions from 1.25 inches, I think it's, I can't remember, it's 42 millimeter 62 to the 1.5 inches. So that works out pretty good. And then today we plumbed in the steam port, which I normally plumb it into the radiator, or I plumbed it into the return line. I plumbed it in many different ways, but this time I decided to plumb it into the actual thermostat housing. People say, what the heck is a steam port, and what the heck, why do you need the steam port? So the steam port on the LS1, it actually had 4 ports on each corner of the manifold. On LS2 and LS3, there are only 2. The LS2 is on the passenger side, and the LS3, or excuse me, on the driver side, and the LS3 is on the passenger side. So this, since the water pump itself, the water pump here, is lower than the highest point of the engine, you can create bubbles in the system. So you have to remove those bubbles somehow. So this is kind of a self-burping system, and it compresses whatever bubbles and escaped out of there and enter it back into the system. So it's just a way to get rid of the bubbles, so they call it the steam port. So I wanted to show you what this looks like before I put the intake on. And I want to show you the front here, which is we're using vintage air. This is the vintage air condenser on the front. It's kind of a nice little bracket they give you, and what I did is I used standoffs. You can't really see them very well, but yeah, you can see one right there, to push it back and get it positioned in here. I still have a little bit of work to do on the radiator section right here, but we do have the fan relay control up front, and then up on the firewall we've got the fuel pump relay. So here's the intake system. Again, I'm turning a short 90 because I don't have a whole lot of room to make a big sweeping 90. This is the mass airflow sensor for the LS2, which is unique. It's it's a lot of stuff. It has something called a honey cell on the other side of it, and it takes the same connection as an LS3. So here's my connector, my mass airflow, and I am a wee bit short, as my grandma used to say. A wee bit. I asked the harness builder to make sure that it could go either way, but we didn't get that way. So there is a mass airflow extension. You can get them for 8-inch, 12-inch, 16-inch, and you just connect it in there, and we'll solve that. So that's no problem. This is actually one really nice piece. It was only, I think, $35, something like that, from Summit. And I made everything that I needed out of that one piece. So I cut this little piece off here. The thing that's really odd about this is that the intake here is 4 inches, and yet the mass airflow is 3.5. So why would you do that? Why wouldn't you make it 4 inches? So I haven't got to that solution yet, but these are some pieces from the previous intake that was on the engine, so heck, why not? Normally I don't run the air cleaner inside. You want to get cold, fresh air outside, But in this particular engine bay, I just don't have any other place to put it. I could run it through the inner fender well, but I don't want to put it in the wheel well. There's just too muck and mushmire out there, so this is what I've chosen to do. So I'm not sure what this guy did, but as you can see, there's a lot of extra sheet metal on here and cross member. You remember this was built with a 78 Camaro clip, so I'm not sure where all this stuff came from. This piece here on the front is correct because you got to have your latch for your hood, but this cross member over here, I don't know. I really haven't figured that one out, but anyway, I'm going to put it back together the way it came apart. We're getting things sorted out in the interior. Got the Dakota Digital taken care of. I've got the fuel pump wired in, and I've got the fan relays. I've got, it didn't come with a neutral safety switch, so I've actually plumbed one in here to the wires that were there. So that's my neutral safety switch, which is manual. And then the fan control, I always run the fan control so you can actually override it. So we're going to try to turn the key on. Haven't started it yet, but Dakota Digital's up and running. And of course I have a check engine light right off the bat. As it turns out, the Holden is unique in its pedal, and we couldn't get the right connector, so we put a regular LS3 pedal connector on it, and I'm still waiting for that. So let's see if I can turn these fans on. Yeah, there you go. Might be able to hear that. So that's about 3,000 CFM, and that'll handle most everything. So everything is fixed up. We've got this cool dash and a new column. The shift mechanism, all that took a little while to square away with the 6-speed, but that is in place. Got a nice column drop from CPP. That's really a nice piece. I really like that. And we're going to take you in the back and take a look at the fuel pump. So here's this 40-year-old gas tank that these guys built out of the 78 Camaro, and we're reusing it. A couple of videos ago I showed you how I plumbed it together, but here it is in place. You can see the fuel pressure, fuel regulator, filter right there, my ground. The return is right over here, and I can't quite see it. Yeah, you can see it. So what I've done is I've taken the existing hard line and crimped on the push-on hose and just utilized what was there because I didn't want to run it because the hard line is preferable. I've also made it so that it's all a disconnect. You can see it disconnects here, so that in the case you do have to drop the tank, everything disconnects and just goes straight down, because you cannot put this bed together with this tank in place. So the tank has to be out of place, or not out of place, it has to be dropped down and out of the way to get to the bolts in the back here. So that's it for this session. See you guys soon.